Last year, Canyon introduced the new KIS system. The original concept was designed and licensed by Syntaste, and it's claimed to offer big benefits to your mountain bike's handling. In fact, Canyon's engineers were so impressed that they managed to secure a 12-month exclusive on the technology. This Spectral CF8 is the first Canyon model to feature the KIS system, but the German brand has indicated that there'll be many more in the future. So is this the best invention since the dropper post, like Canyon claims? We got our hands on this bike late last year, and over the past 6 months we've been putting it to the test on a wide variety of terrain to get a deeper understanding of how it works and to answer the question, is this the future of mountain bike steering? Standing for Keep It Stable, the Canyon KIS system is a mechanical steering stabilizer. The main anchor point sits inside the top tube, and it's connected via stainless steel springs and a high-stretch polymer cord to a specially designed cam that bolts onto the fork steerer tube. At rest, the springs hold the front wheel in the center position. When you turn the handlebar left or right, the springs begin to stretch and a counter force is applied, and this helps to bring the front wheel back to the center position. Now you can adjust the spring's tension via the top tube slider, and this increases or decreases that counter force. There's also a steering limiter built into the system, which is designed to prevent over-rotation of the handlebars and potential damage to the internal components. Now, there's a fair bit of theory about what this widget is designed to do. If you're keen to take a deeper dive into the technical details, make sure you click the link in the video description below to check out our Canyon KIS First Look article. Now, currently the Canyon Spectral CF8 is the only model from the German brand to feature this new steering stabilizer. This bike sells for $7,399 Australian dollars plus shipping, and that's a $700 premium over the regular Spectral CF8 model. The spec and geometry are otherwise identical between these two bikes, with the only difference being a purpose-built frame which features a hole in the top tube and in the head tube which houses the KIS system and the adjusters. According to Canyon, the entire system adds just 110 grams, and it's also claimed to be maintenance-free. Overall, the packaging is discreet, and you wouldn't know it was there unless you knew what you were looking for. Now, we were originally invited out to test the Canyon KIS system in the Austrian Alps as part of the official launch. As wonderful as that sounded though, we realised that testing a new steering stabiliser on unfamiliar trails for a limited time whilst battling jet lag wasn't exactly going to give us the most well-rounded experience. And looking at some of the first ride reviews that came from that launch, it seems we made the right call. So instead we requested a bike with the KIS system in order to test it on more familiar home terrain. Now, riding the Spectral KIS for the first time, it doesn't feel all that different to a regular bike when you're cruising around on your way to the trails. You can feel the springs working to bring the front wheel back to center, but there's not a lot of force to overcome, and for the most part it feels pretty natural. That changes as soon as you start riding up a steep climb. On one of the main climbs in our local trail network, you're typically fighting with the handlebars to stop the front wheel from flopping side to side. The KIS system neutralizes a lot of that wheel flop, however, and that allows you to sit up, relax, and loosen your grip on the handlebars and simply cruise uphill in more of a straight line. On the way down, it wasn't until we were hitting loose traction-poor corners until we really noticed the system working. Early on, our tester Jack was finding that the rear end was sliding out on those loose corners, forcing him to dab with his inside foot. He thought he might have pumped up the rear tyre too much, but that wasn't the case, so on the next run, he decided to stay clipped in and see what would happen. Now, instead of sliding out completely or getting high-sided off the trail, he was able to hit all of those corners clipped in and felt mostly in control. This proved to be a bit of a light bulb moment as Jack realised that you're able to control the rear of the bike more with the front-end steering input. And once you understand what's going on, the system acts quite simply. The rear wheel just wants to point in the same direction as the front, and that's the case whether you're in the air or on a slippery surface. Now, as we got more time on the bike on different trails and in different conditions, other benefits started to become apparent. On chunky trails with loose rocks or slippery roots, there was less chance of the rear wheel being kicked out sideways. It would still skip around, but it would eventually make its way back online. And this means you can be more confident riding those sketchy and off-camber sections, knowing that the rear wheel is following. We also found that there was a noticeable increase in the control over the front wheel. The handlebars were less likely to get yanked from side to side, so we weren't being pinballed as much when riding down steep rocky chutes. That said, we do reckon there's a bit of a misunderstanding about the real advantages of this system. Many of the existing reviews out there have focused on front-end steering stability. Yes, it does provide an improvement, but really the main benefit that we felt is in the way that it applies force to the rear of the bike. The system genuinely helps you around corners by minimising understeer and helping the whole bike to pivot around the front wheel. Now, there are some definite quirks of the system. On the very first jump that we hit, we ended up being a lot more sideways than we were expecting. And that's also the case when you're performing an endo, when you need to lift the rear wheel in order to pivot around a tight corner. With the KIS system, you need to be careful about how much the spring is preloaded before you lift the rear wheel. And Jack nearly slingshotted himself off the side of a hill the first time he did this. He had the bars almost at full lock, so when he lifted the rear wheel into the air, it shot around much quicker than he anticipated. Another quirk of the system is because the rear wheel is encouraged to slide around corners, we found ourselves subconsciously leaning back in order to get more weight and grip onto the rear wheel. Obviously, this unweights the front tyre, and that results in less grip and understeer. It takes a while to adjust to this and get comfortable with the rear wheel sliding so that you can get forward and keep the front tyre gripping. Indeed, there is a learning curve with the KIS system, and it takes a reasonable amount of ride time in order to understand what the system is doing and how it's going to react on the trail. Now, it's worth spending some of that time experimenting with the preload on the springs, which you can do via the adjustable slider on the top tube. And this turned out to be quite a handy adjustment for use in different conditions. If it was slippery or loose, we found it was best to back off the preload adjustment to around 30%. This also proved to be useful on faster flow trails, as it helped the bike to feel more natural and nimble in the air. If the trail surface was dry and grippy, however, we preferred running a higher amount of preload at around 75%. Now, after getting to grips with the KIS system over the past 6 months, we're convinced by the benefits it brings to the trail. It is a little hard to predict over the first few rides, and there are definite quirks to the system that you need to wrap your head around. It does add cost and complexity, and many riders are fair to assume that this is a solution to a problem that no one was really asking to be solved. The added control it brings to cornering is undeniable, however, and the reduced fatigue on the climbs is welcome too. With this in mind, we see the system as being more beneficial on slacker and bigger travel bikes. We'd also be interested to try it out on an XC bike to see how it impacts overall stability and rider fatigue, and we reckon there are benefits to be had for drop bar bikes too. Either way, we understand that Canyon will be rolling out the KIS system to a broader range of bikes in the future, so we'll just have to wait and see. Now, if you're keen to know more about our experience with the Spectral KIS, make sure you hit the link in the video description below to check out the full review over at flowmountainbike.com. If you've got any questions for us about the KIS system, make sure you drop those into the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Tooroo!